From the headquarters of Tell Us Your English in Quito, Ecuador, this is From the South, and I'm Sonia Gray. Venezuela's governing Socialist Party, the PSUV, will end its fourth Congress this Monday with a celebration of the anniversary of the election of the Constituent Assembly last year. 670 delegates are discussing the fight against the multi-dimensional war waged by the United States against Venezuela, as proposed by President Nicolas Maduro. They're also analyzing the grassroots organization within the party and how to continue the Bolivarian revolution.
An unprecedented move in the contemporary history of Venezuela. Its own anthem declared its principles and is the main political, electoral, and cultural force in the country.
Our program summarizes the history, the struggle, and political will of the people, and we are the hope of the popular claims from Venezuela and the rest of the world.
The United Socialist Party of Venezuela meets in its fourth National Congress, after more than 100,000 base assemblies met throughout the country with all the involving parties. Therefore, the organization already has a high number of proposals regarding 7 strategies to try and overcome the most complex and difficult situation faced by Chavismo.
Under the circumstances, we are united, and we will continue to be united, and there's no way to destroy the revolutionary forces.
670 delegates discussed the main problems facing Venezuela.
The Socialist Party next to the Great Patriotic Pole should take control of the country, now stronger than ever. It must be a Congress with historical importance for the changes that Venezuela needs.
After the proposal of its president, the fourth Congress of the Socialist Party will extend its deliberations for a month to analyze the changes that will accompany the imminent monetary reconversion and the start of the transformation of all the state production companies.
A Congress with open doors, a Congress that listens to the country, a Congress that knows how to gather all the fundamental ideas that are being discussed in the Venezuelan society.
This party now has the challenge to temper its organizational structure to be the guarantor of the construction of a new economic production model.
In Colombia, former President Álvaro Uribe gave a press conference to respond to the accusations of bribery and procedural fraud against him that led him to tendering his resignation as a senator last week. Our correspondent in Bogota, Jose Manuel Jimenez, brings us those details.
Different political analysts and human rights activists are already describing the behavior of former President and Senator Álvaro Uribe as a media show. The Colombian Senate hasn't accepted his resignation as senator yet to face the case the Supreme Court of Justice opened against him for alleged bribery and procedural fraud. The president of the Congress, Ernesto Macias Tovar, tweeted that he received Uribe's resignation letter and said Congress will debate on it in upcoming days. On his part, the Democratic Center Party has asked Uribe to reconsider his decision. Meanwhile, Senator Uribe gave a press conference from the Department of Medellin to defend himself from all accusations. In this press conference, Uribe said that he is a human rights defender, and because of that, he will keep fighting against the injustice that, according to him, the Supreme Court is promoting. It's important to recall that it was Álvaro Uribe who started this process by suing Senator Iván Cepeda. The court rejected the accusations against Cepeda and opened a file against Uribe. The former Colombian president also complained about what he calls a political persecution.
ampolla en diferentes sectores.
Still in Colombia, torrential rains have left one child dead and at least 19 people injured in the northern department of Santander. Heavy rains also hit the department of Antioquia, where over 2,000 people have been affected. The authorities in Santander explained that the disaster was prompted by a father who diverted a stream without permission. Heavy rains also affected the department of Guainía over a month ago, leaving more than 15,000 people homeless. Now the polls are about to close in Zimbabwe, where there's been a high turnout in the country's first election since the ousting of former President Robert Mugabe. Queues began to form even before the polls opened. People who want to see the economy restored are pinning their hopes on 40-year-old Nelson Chamisa. He is a lawyer who is vying to become the country's youngest head of state. Despite allegations of fraud, the people of Zimbabwe have come out in droves to cast their votes. Polls will close at 7 p.m. local time. If no candidate wins more than half of the votes, a runoff election will be held on the 8th of September.
Things has to be changed in Zimbabwe because we are struggling here in Zimbabwe. We want a new leadership, we want things to be changed so that everyone should go to work. Our families are suffering because there are no jobs here in Zimbabwe.
Nelson Chamisa, the main opposition candidate, says he is confident of a victory against the incumbent President Emmerson Mnangagwa. After casting his vote, Chamisa declared that victory is certain as crowds cheered for him. However, opinion polls showed before the election showed that Mnangagwa, a former intelligence officer who has been president since the ousting of Mugabe, held a marginal lead over Chamisa. After casting his vote, President Mnangagwa insisted that the election process will remain peaceful. A day before the elections, Mugabe made his first public appearance in 8 months and announced that he'd be voting for the opposition, a move that surprised his former ally Mnangagwa. More than 5.5 million people reportedly re-registered to vote.
Yeah, it's my first time. Yeah, I just thought we as young people, we're hoping for change. They have no jobs, so we believe that this time we're going to cast our votes. There's going to be a big change.
We're going to take a short break now, but join us again after this look at what our multimedia colleagues are reporting.
UNASUR es un proceso de integración de los pueblos, no es solamente de los gobiernos, sino de los pueblos.
Creemos de que la UNASUR fue ayer, es hoy y seguirá siendo una de las herramientas de la democracia, buscando la unidad del pueblo latinoamericano.
Welcome back. We go to Argentina now, where teachers in the province of Buenos Aires are on strike. They called for a 48-hour strike to demand better working conditions and an improved budget for education. A march is also scheduled for Tuesday, in which teachers will head to the Ministry of Education to highlight the lack of action by the government of Mauricio Macri. Our correspondent in Buenos Aires, Edgardo Esteban, has those details.
Yes, classes should have started today, both in the province of Buenos Aires as well as in the capital city and 3 other districts, after the end of the winter holidays. There was a lot of expectation around this, with the parity negotiations which the unions had been demanding from Mauricio Macri's government since 2017. But the government refused, and there have been repressive measures taken in some districts, including Buenos Aires province, where the governor, Maria Eugenia Vidal, imposed heavy fines on the teachers. So the teachers are now holding this 48-hour strike, which will continue tomorrow. Next week, the university teachers are expected to join the action because they are also facing a very difficult situation. They have had no wage increase at a time when inflation is said to be more than 18% for this year, 2018, but also because of the lack of the teaching materials and basic supplies in the public education sector. And all this is getting worse with the budget cuts imposed as a result of Macri's negotiations with the IMF. So we can expect the conflict to intensify, with more industrial action as the government refuses to negotiate with the teachers.
Still in Argentina, various social sectors held a festival in the capital Buenos Aires to reject a reform to the penal code that regulates minor violations of the law.
Under the motto, "Our culture is not a crime," organizers decried the proposed reform to the penal code because it would increase the oppressive power of the police in Buenos Aires and endangers workers, street vendors and street artists.
The police came to evict us, to leave us homeless. They came with clear instructions to stop us from performing our art and educating people.
They finally managed to kick us out and close the door on us. They told us we could not return. And they do this because it's a political issue.
Protesters warned about Macri's administration, which is using security forces and local government bodies to persecute self-sustaining cultural spaces that create new ways of thinking and promote culture.
They want to erase the streets of everything that goes against their economic and political model.
According to activists, ever since the Cambiemos alliance came to power in 2015, economic strangling and intimidation tactics are used as a tool against mobilization and social gatherings by the people.
We strongly believe that art must push for political action, because it can't only be a way to have fun or to pass the time. Artists must take part in social movements.
Facing an ongoing increase of institutional attacks that includes forced disappearances, political imprisonment, and even murder, residents of Buenos Aires reject the actions of the neoliberal government that criminalize various social sectors.
At least 11 lawyers, businessmen and state officials who were part of a corrupt judicial network in Peru were arrested on Sunday. Members of the network are accused of coordinating sentences that would favor criminals. They were all part of the judicial power, the public ministry and the Council of Magistrates. Among them were the businessmen Antonio Camayo and Mario Mendoza. Mendoza was linked to the Aprista party of former President Alan Garcia. So let's hear from our correspondent in Lima, Jaime Herrera, who has more on this case.
11 members of the criminal network called the White Collars of the Port remain detained. They were all working inside different courts in Lima and were led by Judge Walter Rios, head of the Callao Supreme Court. Among those involved are businessmen, lawyers, former judges, assistants, and advisors. Their job was to promote a network that would allow sentences to be modified, to help defendants in exchange of favors and money, and even to offer contracts with the state. These crimes were proven in audios that were presented by the Attorney General's office. Those detained are not the only ones that were part of this network, and now more than 400 police officers and 20 prosecutors are working on arresting new suspects. They have said that one unidentified suspect has fled the country. This scandal is currently taking place in Callao, one of the most important departments in the country, that has also some cases of judges involved in drug trafficking. and there are connections to other cases across the country.
Chilean President Sebastián Piñera has criticized the lack of action by the Catholic Church regarding sexual abuse scandals within the institution. This is the first time Piñera has addressed the scandal, saying that the highest responsibility, referencing Cardinal Ricardo Izratti, who has been called to appear in court in the city of Rancagua. The president said the church should have faced these accusations a long time ago. Still in Chile, Mapuche leader Machi Celestino Cordova is back in hospital after attending his ceremony of spiritual renewal. Cordova, who is imprisoned under murder charges he denies, finally got the 15-hour permission by the state to visit his railway or spiritual shrine. The Machi, who was heavily guarded by 250 security guards. His health is still critical following the prolonged hunger strike he undertook to demand that the government let him attend the ceremony.
We want to highlight the work done by security forces. They managed to achieve two different goals. On the one hand, securing the personal safety of the Machi, and on the other, guaranteeing his right to attend the ceremony.
90 people are occupying a sports field in Chile's capital, Santiago, to demand the construction of social housing. Residents of the eastern neighborhood of Ñuñoa promoted the initiative to protest the cost of living. They want to highlight that no social housing has been built in the neighborhood for over 40 years, in an area where the value of land has quadrupled over the last decade. They called for a sustainable model of local development. Jamaica's National Solid Waste Management Authority has ordered an immediate investigation into arsonists lighting two fires at the Riverton City facility in under 12 hours. The authority is now looking into whether there were security breaches that allowed the arsonists to access the site. The events are thought to be deliberate action by saboteurs. Prime Minister Andrew Holness asked the Waste Management Authority to increase security and surveillance at the site. July 30th marks UN World Day Against Human Trafficking. The United Nations Office on Drug and Crimes says that at least 2.5 million migrants were trafficked across the world, but it estimates that for each identified victim of trafficking, there are 20 more unregistered, making the number closer to 50 million. Latin America is one of the most affected regions. 13% of trafficking victims that arrive in Central Europe, the main destination for sexual exploitation, come from South America. The World Day Against Human Trafficking is aimed to raise the awareness and protect victims and their rights. The Uruguayan Parliament has approved a law to fight human trafficking. The new legislation seeks to sanction and put an end to those crimes while also providing aid and reparations to victims.
It is hard to quantify human trafficking crimes in Uruguay, but there is a consensus that the issue has deep roots and that eradicating it completely will be time-consuming. Over the past year, over 350 cases of underage girls being sold into sexual slavery were reported. In the face of this, the Uruguayan Parliament approved a law that will prosecute and sanction anyone who profits off human trafficking while also protecting victims.
Human trafficking is a flagrant violation of human rights. It's a form of sexual exploitation and of exploitation in general. It's a major crime and it's an act of profound violence.
This law defines human trafficking as the capturing, recruitment, transporting or harboring of people with the intent of sexual exploitation, forced marriage, forced pregnancy, forced labor, slavery, organ harvesting, or the sale of people, in particular children and adolescents.
Es un negocio.
This is a business, plain and simple. It's a business that uses people. This network that captures people exists in different forms. They may offer so-called new horizons for people who come from areas with great inequality. They prey on those in need and who may have a dream to overcome. They offer them a different future.
Congress created the National Council for the Prevention of Human Trafficking, which is made up of public institutions and social organizations.
We try to give psychosocial and essential legal help to victims. We are trying to put an end to this situation, but it's a very long process that has peaks and valleys. And working against us are the organized crime networks that continue to undermine the law.
This initiative includes some criminal provisions that have been questioned by the opposition. Besides, there were innovations in the categorizing of crimes, such as penalizing cases of child pornography for regular consumption with no intent for distribution.
We'll take a short break now, but join us again after this look at what our multimedia colleagues are reporting.
جزء لا يتجزأ من القضية الفلسطينية، ولازم يكون عندنا نساء واعيات على اللي بيصير بالضبط عندنا وبالوطن عشان تقدر تنشئ جيل قوي قادر على مواجهة الاحتلال، وبنحكي بالنهاية للاحتلال انقلاب.
Welcome back. India has excluded more than 4 million people from the border state of Assam from a draft list of citizens in a bid to clamp down on immigrants. Out of the 32 million people that submitted their documents to prove their citizenship, the names of over 4 million were omitted. Local authorities are tightening security in the area, which has left Bengali-speaking Muslims in limbo and in fear of being sent to detention centers or being deported. And China approaches Britain over a post-Brexit trade deal. Let's take a look at that story and more news from around the world.
Very nice to see you.
China has reached out to Britain and offered the possibility of a post-Brexit free trade deal. The move comes as China is embroiled in a trade war with the United States. British Foreign Secretary Jeremy Hunt told Chinese Premier Li Keqiang that a golden era in relations between the countries is underway. Britain has also made no secret of wanting to advance businesses with China as it prepares to leave the European Union. Indonesian authorities are battling to evacuate hikers from Mount Rinjani after a 6.4 magnitude quake rocked the island of Lombok on Sunday. So far, 16 people have died, including a man killed by falling stones. Now authorities are in a race against time to rescue over 600 people who are believed to be trapped by debris that has blocked their path on the mountain.
Today, one hiker passed away at the Palangwan on Mount Rinjani. His name is Mohamed Ainul Taksim, a 26-year-old university student from Makassar. The information we received said he was killed by falling stones during a landslide. No foreigner was killed on Mount Rinjani.
As tensions between Iran and the United States increase, an Iranian Ministry of Foreign Affairs spokesman has announced that there's no way his country can positively engage in dialogue with the current U.S. administration. He also stated that while the United States is pressuring its allies to cut ties with Iran or face sanctions, talks with Europe are still continuing. Migrants on board a ship that docked on a beach in the Spanish municipality of Barbate, Cádiz, were filmed jumping off and running away as soon as it approached the shore. According to the Spanish Coast Guard, over 1,400 migrants have arrived in Spain over the last 3 days.
Palestinian teenager Ahed Tamimi and her mother Nariman were released from Israeli custody on Sunday. Earlier, we spoke to the Palestinian journalist Ramzi Baroud about Tamimi's case, how it united Palestinians and the future of the Palestinian resistance movement.
And I think Ahed united Palestinians in two different ways. In her defiance and her resistance as an individual, but also in the fact that she was jailed and tortured in Israeli jails. And that also kind of is this constant reminder that at the end of the day, all Palestinians are prisoners. All Palestinians are living under different rules and different type of Israeli machination to deprive them from their freedom. So when we relate to Ahed, we relate to every Palestinian living in the West Bank, Gaza, and elsewhere. As far as Israel is concerned, no form of resistance is allowed. So this is very important that we note. Even the two Italian artists yesterday who painted a mural of Ahed Tamimi on the wall, on the apartheid wall on the West Bank, themselves were arrested. There is no form of resistance that is allowed as far as the Israelis are concerned. Even holding a Palestinian flag is illegal per Israeli law. So to be a young Palestinian activist in the West Bank, who is fighting not just against the Israeli occupation, but against the confines and the limitations of the Palestinian government, the Palestinian Authority in Ramallah, it makes their challenge a double challenge. They are now not just fighting against one enemy, more or less they are fighting against two. But in a way, as far as the Palestinian people are concerned, is that when they are cornered, when they are at their supposed weakest point, they are in fact the time where they become even stronger and more empowered. So I really expect that the future of resistance is to be led by this young generation that Ahed represent. And I think it will be years and years of a struggle that is led by the likes of Ahed.
And that brings us to the end of this news brief. For these and many other stories, you can find them on our website at talsirtv.net/English. You can also join us on social media. We are on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For Talsir English, I'm Sony Gray. Thank you for watching.